Good morning everyone, it's Dave here from davestravelpages.com and this is day 3 of my Hercules bike tour around the Peloponnese of Greece. If you watched yesterday's vlog update, you'll know that I'm staying an extra day here in Nafplion, but it doesn't mean it's a day off the bike. Instead, I'm going to go and see 2 archaeological sites. One of them is Tiryns, and that's really the centrepiece of the Hercules 12 labours myth, as each labour started and finished at Tiryns. And then I'm going on to the archaeological site of Lerner. But before all that, I'm going to go and get a coffee, so I'll catch you in a bit. So here we have the archaeological site of Tiryns, and this, along with Mycenae, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So sometimes UNESCO World Heritage Sites are combined. There must be some sort of rules involved, no idea what they are. So the standout features of Tiryns are what they call the Cyclopean walls. I wonder if I pronounced that right. Anyway, the site is ancient, and it was even ancient in the times of what we would term classical Greece. And those classical Greeks couldn't believe that these walls were created by man, so they said that the Cyclops had helped create them. So my first time at the site, and actually I was expecting some of the rocks to be a lot bigger, some of the blocks I should say, rather than rocks. But as it is, I can imagine that this was created by man, probably lots of men. And they are doing some repair work on the site at the minute. And they're kind of cheating and using cranes to put blocks back in place. So it would have been built here because it was quite close to the sea. And I imagine that the natural port at Nafplion has been a port for thousands of years. So this would have been a trading centre and also a defensive centre. It's not as high as I thought it would be. So it's not as high as Mycenae, and it's certainly not as high as other hill forts I've been to. But at the same time, I guess it would be hard to invade this place in Bronze Age. So I'm looking out over the walls from the back of the fort. So the sea is behind me at the minute. And as you can see, this is quite fertile land here. And they look like orange trees to me. And there's probably some olive trees somewhere. It would be very unusual if there wasn't any olive trees. And I somehow doubt that the farming has changed much here over the course of time. Fertile ground is always used for farming. People are never really going to build on it if they can grow stuff there. Well, until the Industrial Revolution. So I think I'm going to head in that direction, because that appears to be the top. It looks like I can't get at it from this angle, but perhaps I can from another angle. Although I do want to show you a gate, which is just down there. I'll wait for these people to move and then show you it. So I'm looking at the wall that is facing the sea, which is way over there in the background. Over there, you probably can't see it. And this wall appears to have 2 or 3 entranceways in it. So one of them is, we'll follow the finger, is there. And that seems to be just like for one person. Moving along, you can easily see that bigger gate there, which turns as well. So it's not like you can come at the gate directly, as people would have to have turned a corner. And my intuition tells me that that was probably for animals. Maybe it was for horses or something like that. The reason I think that is because if I go down a little bit further, there are 2 more entrances which are a lot smaller and look like they're only for people. And one of them is there and one of them is there. Now, would all of these entrances been at use at the same time? Difficult to say. You can kind of see how it's triangular at the top there and there. I've seen that in a couple of different Mycenaean or Mycenaean hill forts. So I'd say that, you know, it's original. I'm not an archaeologist, by the way. I could just be making all this up. I'm just looking at a site and interpreting it from what I see. but it makes sense to me. If I was going to build a fort here, I'd have a big gate that would probably always be barricaded with a gate, and that'd be where I'd have my animals come in and out. And then I'd have two smaller places where only one person could come in or out at a time, and you put a guard on each of those, and you've got a pretty secure fort. So let's see if I can get to the top and see what the views are like all around, and see if you can see another angle. So if you have a look there, I'm just walking up to the top of the fort now, and you can see some big pillars which I think would have formed a gate. If you remember back to Mycenae, and I showed you the Lion's Gate, so I think this would have been a main entrance to the top citadel. So those smaller gates that I've shown you would have got you into one inner form of defensive wall, but there would probably have been another one to get to a higher section, which more or less is where all the important people would be, the kings and priests and things like that. Let's carry on walking to the top. Views are pretty nice from up here. See if I can swing you around in a minute. So this is the very top of the complex, and the top here is flat. Perhaps it was naturally flat and people have just leveled it out a little bit as well. I would say that, judging by these smaller walls here, that perhaps that is some form of reconstruction. It's always really hard to tell with archaeological sites that date back thousands of years, because you have modern archaeologists who are reconstructing things, but you also have people who came across a hill fort like this that was abandoned and thought, hey, wouldn't it be a great idea if we lived here for a while? Obviously this concrete section has been added, so there's definitely been work going on. And this concrete section here, they've left out a section there, so perhaps that was a pillar that would have stood up, so there could have been a temple here. Again, there's no information, which is a real shame. It's nice to know a little bit more about this one. There's an information board there. Wonder how I can get to that. Looks like I can walk around. Okay, I'm gonna see what that information board shows. So let's check out this board. Those walls do look pretty cool from here. The board's just about how they're retaining it. So basically how they're looking after the site. You see that picture there? That looks like Quilap, which is a hill fort I visited in Peru. Although this one is older than Quilap. Looks really similar, but then I guess there's only so many ways that you can build a hill fort made out of blocks of stone, really, isn't there? I'm going to go down here and see where it leads. I think I can go down here. Yeah, there's some steps. Cool. So that was an inner wall there, which you can see with those huge blocks, and they are big blocks, those ones. But here is an outer wall. So not sure if you can see, but this outer wall, it's got a line here. Let me move my finger over it. It's got a line here, and it looks like it's got earth in the middle, and then a line of rocks here. So it looks like it's two walls with earth in the middle, and then they would have put rocks on the top to keep it all together. Well, at least that's what it looks like. Maybe it's rocks all the way through. Looks like we can walk down. So this would have been, well, yet another entranceway by the looks of it. I wonder why they had so many entranceways. If you're building a hill fort and you keep putting doors in it, it's not going to be very secure, is it? And they obviously had enemies, otherwise they wouldn't have built a hill fort, would they? I have a feeling I'm going to dead end here, and I'm then going to need to go back up to the top of the hill again. But we'll see what there is. Yes, there's another turning passageway here. So now I wonder if this was the main entrance or not. What are the chances of there being an information board outside? Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so that would have been big enough for just like one or two people. And again, it's got this thing where it curves around, so it's not straight. Probably get you a better view if I look at it the other way actually. Let's go down. So you can see how it curves there to go around the corner. So you could more easily defend it because you couldn't get a straight run at the place. So if this had doors or something like that at different places, I would say, see that little thing there? I would say that, and one is missing on this side, but I would say that was either some sort of hinge or some sort of place where a door would have gone. Don't know, that's where I would have put a door. As this little walkway takes you around the front of it. I'm definitely going to need to go back up again, I know that. But it's a nice day, I can take a walk. It is very, very impressive, and I would go as so far to say as I think this is more impressive than Mycenae's. I think the reason that Mycenae's is more famous is because of the treasure that was found there, which was linked to King Agamemnon. But in terms of scale, size, even beauty, I would say that this is a superior monument, if there can ever be such a thing as a superior monument. Ah, now that looks like another entranceway. Why so many? So this must have been one of the other entranceways that we saw from when we were at the top. Oh man, I've done a huge circle. And if it is, I'm sure it's blocked off when I get up there. But I'm going to climb up anyway. What can go wrong? Okay, so to be fair, now it makes more sense having this entranceway, or so many of them, because if they all had steps leading up, well, no one's going to attack here very quickly, are they? Okay, awesome. Well, I've done a little loop. So now I need to go back up to the top and around the back. So I'm back at the top of the fort again. So I thought I'd better share what the connection is with Hercules and the 12 labours. So basically, Hercules started and finished each labour from here. The reason being that King Eurystheus, which I'm 99% certain I pronounced correctly, was tasked with giving him originally 10 labours to perform, 10 impossible labours to act as penance for when he had killed his kids and his wife. And so the king would send him out from here. Hercules would go and perform a labour, which generally involved slaying something or stealing something, and then he'd come back here, say how he'd got on, and then the king would send him out again. That was a very short version of the 12 labours, wasn't it? So the next archaeological site I'm going to visit is Lerner, where Hercules slayed the Lernian Hydra. And I'm not sure if you can see the sea just over there, but basically I'm going to cycle down to the coast there, and then cycle around the coast. There's a bay on the other side, and that should be where Lerner is. Don't know anything about the archaeological site. I'm not really expecting to see much there, but you never know. Could be very pleasantly surprised when I get there. It's about lunchtime, well, lunchtime, I always think in terms of food. It's about 12 o'clock now, so I'm going to cycle there and perhaps get a bite to eat before I go to the site itself. So just before I went down, I thought I'll take a look around this corner, and this is probably one of the most interesting parts of the site. So it is probably going to be difficult to make out, but can you see how it's like got a vaulted roof there where the stones meet? And there's like an archway, and in each of those archways is like a little entranceway like this. So I wonder what that was for then. It could perhaps have been an underground passage, but then it doesn't really explain why these things are here. Yeah, I'm not too sure what this was for. There's no border information to tell me, and I can't think of anything that this would have been useful for particularly, because you've got a solid wall on this left-hand side here, and then you've got these like it's an archway here. If this was made out of finely chiselled rock, you could have said it was a Gothic church or something, but it's not, obviously, because it's about 3,000 years older than that. Oh well, that's something to look up on Wikipedia or whoever's got some information on it. I'm in shock. I think I've actually found the bike path in Greece. I'm not too sure how far this goes, but I'm heading towards the coast, so we'll see what happens. So here I am at last at the archaeological site of Lerner. Now I'm going to read directly from the pamphlet that the museum's given me, well, archaeological site has given me. In the swampy region of Lerner, home of the mythical Lernian Hydra slain by Hercules, a large settlement developed between the 7th and 2nd millennium BC. The settlement was fortified in the second half of the 3rd millennium and served as the administrative centre for the region. So the archaeology has been protected by this structure they built over the top. And I'm sure it's very interesting for people who are really into this subject. But to me, well, it's just the foundations of a building really, isn't it? I'm not even sure I'm supposed to be walking around in here, but I'm the only person on the site, there's no one else here. So this brings us to what is the myth of Hercules? What is the 12 Labours myth all about? So there's loads of different versions of what it can be about. Some people say it's to do with the constellations and the star signs. Other people think that maybe it was a hero that was killing off a champion of other nearby cities. Some people think that the monsters did actually exist. Some people think it was just a way of mapping out the ancient Greek world at the time. So I think what I'm going to do during the tour is try and point out the similarities between the sites. So this site is the first one that we visited, and there is a connection with water here, which I'm hoping we can read more about in a bit, but there are allegedly some holy wells here. It's also connected with the star sign. People think that this is connected with the sign of Cancer, I believe, which is the crab. There is a settlement here, so arguably it could be to do with killing off a local champion. Although it's not a defensive settlement as such, there's not a city here, or at least it's not the remains of a city now, it's just the remains of a small settlement. So my initial thought, especially if that is a well, is that perhaps this was at some point a religious centre of some form. So maybe we can keep that in mind for when we go and visit all the other sites, and maybe we can find some sort of similarity between everything and work out what the myth of Hercules and the 12 Labours was all about really. And just as I said that it didn't look like a fortified site, this little panel talks about fortification walls. So perhaps it was a small settlement. Okay, I think that's a tour of the site over. There's not really that much to see here. It was just €2 to get in, and while I think about it, the cost for Tiryns was €4 and Mycenae was €12, in case you're interested in that sort of thing. So I think that's it for my Hercules tour for the day. I think I'm going to head back to Nafplion. I might take a little cycle ride around the city and show you some pictures from there. And other than that, I'm going to prepare for tomorrow's ride, which is going to be quite a big one, which is going to be going to Nemea and then on to Stymphalian Lakes. I'll catch you in a bit.